What is going on, everybody? We got Jason Aponte in the building. You know what day it is. It's Wednesday, so it's state of the franchise. Obviously, based on the things that we've been talking about last week, we were really hoping to be talking about two victories in a row, but unfortunately, Jason, we find ourselves on the opposite end of a really bad loss. And before we get into all the specifics of Arizona Cardinals and how the season outlook is at this point, what was your vibe going into the game, and then what was the vibe going out of the game?
So I think initially during the week, the reports that were coming out were about Kyler Murray's not going to play and DeAndre Hopkins is not going to play. So right away, your mind goes to, well, this should be a 49ers win. But then the more that I talked about it, especially on my own podcast, I got really afraid a little bit. Like I was like, wait a minute. I started to think back, man, Colt McCoy did something last year that nobody saw coming, right? And he went into Seattle with the New York Giants and he literally went in there and won a game, right? And I kind of warned against it on the podcast. Like, don't get overconfident. This is still a guy who can execute. Doesn't mean that he needs to be Tom Brady. He can just execute. So even still, I still didn't really see the path to an Arizona win, right? But then I think as the game started to unfold on Sunday, Dallas gets smashed. Bills lose to Jacksonville. I started to get scared because the day was getting weirder and weirder, and I was like, "Ah, man, I don't know about this." Like, and sure enough, right after the first drive or the second drive, you see the fumble, and you start to feel like the pit of your stomach starts to fill up. And I even sent out a tweet saying, "Oh, so it's one of those games. Let me go run to the liquor store." And then it just snowballed from there. So that's the range of emotions I had. Not overly confident, going into it. But I think after I watched the early window games close, you see the Bills lose to Jacksonville. You watch Dallas get demolished at home by a Denver team that had been underperforming. That any given Sundays thing started to kind of get into my head. And then even though I still thought that they would win, it kind of just reared its ugly head in the worst way.
Yeah, I agree with the vibes. And really quickly, we just had some news drop. The 49ers had made some roster moves just now. Mike McGlinchey officially goes to IR. They activate Colton McKivitz from the practice squad, and they have released linebacker Christian Ellis. So just some uh, administration type stuff. And we'll get into the Mike McGlinchey stuff in a little bit, but I just want to get that out there. So I agree. I think we were talking about that on my channel as well. Is we talked about Colt McCoy, and I said, Colt McCoy over maybe the span of a 16, 17 game season as the full time starter is probably not going to give you the results that you want. But Colt McCoy is very capable in spot starts. He can come in and be successful, and he can be a veteran, and he can move the ball. And it was exactly what that team needed. And really, right off the bat, you get the George Kittle fumble, and then you get a good stop from the defense, and then right after that they turn it back over. Talk about that sequence, and do you just feel like there was any way at that point they could come back, or was it just such a hard road ahead to get above that?
I just think it was more frustrating because they were moving the ball. And that seems to be the theme of the 49ers offense this season. Not having problems moving the ball, but unfortunately either execution wise not coming away with points or, execution, penalties, something like that, just not coming away with points. George Kittle looked the part immediately, looked like he was all the way back, and he had a fantastic game, that fumble aside. Looked like a guy that was involved in the passing game, exactly what you want to see. Brandon Ayuk's best game of the season happened this week too, fumble aside. But at the same time, this is a reoccurring theme with this team. You're able to move the ball, you're able to move into territory on the other side of the field, but you don't come away with any sort of points. And that really was the demoralizing portion of it. Now the problem is that Colt McCoy was able to move the ball, execute the offense, and Cliff Kingsbury had a great plan, which D'Amico Ryan struggled to stop. Screens. They were just beating the 49ers to the punch. They knew exactly where to attack, and the 49ers had no answer on defense. And I think that a lot of people discounted Jimmy Ward, Tart not being out there kind of reared its ugly head a little bit on certain plays as well too. Nothing against Hufanga, who actually played solidly, I believe. And I'm not gonna give him crap because guess what? I think this is gonna be a theme of what we're talking about today. He's getting reps and he's developing. He's not a veteran who we're going to talk about because I have some thoughts. He's not a veteran who is making dumb mistakes after he's been in this league for so long. And that had nothing to do with play on the field. We'll talk about it. You probably know exactly where I'm going with this. So with Hufanga, I feel a little bit better about that because that's something where, hey, it happens, you file it away, and you get better from it. That's it. In the other way, veterans who are screwing up on the field are not going to get better from it. And the idea of having veterans is that they wouldn't do things that rookies would do. But we'll talk about it in a little bit, and I think you guys know exactly what I'm talking about.
Absolutely. Let's keep on that conversation about coaching because right now the coaching it's a hot topic on Twitter. It's a hot topic amongst all 49er fans because obviously we understand when things aren't going right, we want them to go right, and that means what changes have to occur to push that forward. Obviously, we have been singing D'Amico Ryan's praises for the last couple weeks. We have felt that the defense has actually been the unit that's been keeping the 49ers in games, doing all those kinds of things. And I think we both agree that D'Amico didn't have his best game calling situational plays and some of the blitzes in oddly timed situations. Didn't really translate into the 49ers having too much of a chance to get back into that game. So just overall, what was your thoughts on the coaching? We're talking about Kyle. We're talking about D'Amico. What did your just whole thought of the coaching of that game? Again, Elijah Mitchell, 8 carries for the entire game after going off back-to-back 100-yard rushing performances, and was again the glimpse that we saw of like, oh, the offense is getting back on track. They're running the football. What are your thoughts about the coaching and everything that went down there?
Well, let me start with D'Amico because I feel like a lot of people are all of a sudden turned on D'Amico when you said there's a larger sample size of him being better. And I think that the biggest thing that's going on right now with this team is that they aren't putting a complete game together. One week is the offense doesn't show up. One week is the offense, the defense doesn't show up. And I think that that's something that we need to talk about in terms of coaching, right? But in terms of D'Amico Ryans, I want to remind people about how they thought about Robert Saleh in his first year. And when people are saying, man, I want Robert Saleh, how unfair is it of anyone to compare Robert Saleh in year 5 to D'Amico Ryans in season 1? Listen to how stupid that sounds. That's the word I'm going to use. Stupid.
Hey, and to be perfectly honest, Saleh was not good in his first year as a DC. He was not good. This entire fan base was saying the same thing. Fire him, fire him, fire him, and it's all this. It's the same thing that we're saying back. It's like limited people to be able to actually execute the scheme, injuries, things like that. And he's a first year guy. So, but go on. Sorry, I just wanted to.
No, you're good. And I would argue that right now, D'Amico Ryans is further along than Robert Saleh was in year 1. And yeah, he has better personnel, but I feel like he's further along in terms of adjustments. It didn't come across this game, and that's fine. You can take him to the shed in this game. But we had to know there was going to be growing pains. Need I remind you, D'Amico Ryans led unit in the first Arizona meeting, held them to 17 points and 1 Kyler Murray rushing yard. How quickly we forget. It was one game. Fine. You want to be upset, but this whole D'Amico Ryans needs to go thing, stop it. You sound dumb. You really have no idea what you're talking about because you're comparing a 5th-year defensive coordinator who got a head coaching job to a first-year defensive coordinator. That's one, okay? Now, in terms of what's going on the other side of the ball, look, 8 carries is not what you want from Elijah Mitchell. But here's the thing. The Arizona Cardinals are susceptible to the run, not the pass. So they sold out to stop the run. Now, I don't agree with Kyle Shanahan only running the ball 8 times with Elijah Mitchell, no matter how many fronts were in front of whoever was lined up. I don't agree with that. You have to run the ball a little bit more. But in terms of what's advantageous and what you have to do, Jimmy Garoppolo still was able to complete passes against a unit that is largely known for their pass defense, right? And on top of that, Mike McGlinchey left this game. And then we got a glimpse of what life is going to be like without Mike McGlinchey. And I hope that right now you understand you yelling for Jalen Moore doesn't mean that he was going to be the first one off the bench. It was always going to be Tom Compton. And when people say, oh, somebody on the bench is better than McGlinchey, no, no. And I'm kind of glad that you got to see that up close. Okay. Now, in terms of what we just talked about with the running game, yeah, you got to run the ball more. You have to. You're in down and distance, but you're down 17 nothing in the blink of an eye also. And they're giving you looks to throw the ball. George Kittle's catching the ball. He's doing well. Brandon Ayuk is doing well while he's getting the ball in his hands. So in terms of that, what do you do? Do you stick to the run in the game when you're down 17 nothing? I mean, obviously you should have run the ball more, but that's not the time to establish the run, get down on first and second down and run the ball. You have to get back in the game. And when you look at the way the defense was playing, where were the stops going to come from? Missed tackles, out of position. The Cliff Kingsbury out coaching D'Amico Ryans. D'Amico Ryans got taken to the shed. He did. That's it. But it's one week. You're ignoring the larger sample size of D'Amico doing well for the one game because you're upset right now. We're all upset. I'm upset. We're all upset. There's no reason that you shouldn't be. Not saying that. But you have to look at it in the bigger picture. You knew growing pains were going to happen. Just so happened it happened this week. So those are my thoughts on it. And I'm sure we'll dive into the Kyle Shanahan thing a little bit more. But I'm just trying to give a little bit of context as to why probably the 49ers didn't run the ball as much and that they actually kind of passed the ball kind of well in this game. No matter what, about missed reads and all that stuff, they still moved the ball. And 40 times throwing the ball is not what you want. So that's what I'll say.
I agree. And I think the biggest thing, and you kind of touched on it a little bit, it's just finish. Like, I think that this team as a whole, as we talk about identity, we talk about who they are as a group, this unit, offense, defense, special teams, doesn't matter which phase, they just have a really difficult time doing the simple concept of finishing drives, finishing plays, finishing blocks. We see it in spurts. It's the consistency that's missing. So hopefully that comes into fruition pretty soon. Eddie wants to talk about a missed opportunity here. So we'll give Eddie the floor here. He says Kyle missed an opportunity to make an example of Norman and set the tone for the team. They need a wake-up call. Belichick has done it, and it works. Jason, I know you got some spicy takes. Let's hear it.
Kyle Shanahan. When a certain player does something wrong, you decrease their snaps. If he's a rookie or if he's a younger guy, veterans are supposed to be on the field to lead and not make these mistakes. Josh Norman is an absolute idiot. You allowed that to happen, and he's still on this team. I don't give a damn about his injury. If you are going to be this guy who's throwing people into doghouses, not pick and choose from player 1 to 53. If you screw up, bye. Trenton Cannon fumbles twice in a game, still continues to have a job. Josh Norman does something that if a rookie did it, maybe I could even wrap my head around it. A veteran fighting with a coach, and then the people trying to calm him down, fighting with them. And you say after the game, it wasn't the idea to bench him the entire game. Look, say what you want about Mike Singletary. Mike Singletary would have sent him to the locker room. He wouldn't be on the team next year. You know what? He's not a part of your long-term process. And everyone in that locker room is looking at the way that you treat one player and you treat another player. Look, I may not agree with the whole tough love, hard act or whatever it is. But if you're going to keep that same energy, keep that same energy with George Kittle, Trenton Cannon, Trent Sherfield, every single player. Tom Compton whiffs on block after block after block, and you continue to run him out there, and you don't say a word about it after the game. It's you pick and choose who you want to be hard on, and that is the stuff I cannot deal with at this point. I don't have to agree with the hard approach, right? I don't have to agree with the way that you're tough on everybody. But if you're gonna be tough on every single player. Keep that same energy. Brandon Ayuk is not running fast enough in practice. Let's decrease his snaps. Josh Norman is yelling at a coach and wants to fight his own teammates. You know what? He's still on this roster, and if he was healthy, I would bet my bottom dollar he'd be the starter. What example are you setting in this locker room? And don't tell me that anybody in that locker room does not notice that you allow other people to make mistakes and other people to not make mistakes. Guy drops a pass, he runs right back out there. Guy makes one mistake, banished to the shadow realm. It doesn't make sense. And if you're going to keep it a buck with everybody, keep it a buck with player 1 through 53. Josh Norman should not be on his team. And that is what Eddie is talking about right here. And that's what I was alluding to earlier. That was an absolute, it's a disgrace that Josh Norman is still on this team. You have to get rid of him because 1, he doesn't provide anything on the field. 2, he's a veteran who makes rookie mistakes, which if that's the case, give me the rookie who's going to make the rookie mistakes because at least he's going to learn from it. What is Josh Norman going to learn in year 8? What is Josh Norman going to learn in year 8, whatever it is that he's in this league? He's been washed for 3 years. Don't tell me that you're putting veterans out there to make the right decision and keep vets out there, because when the vet's not playing well and not playing in a veteran way and leading himself in and carrying himself in a veteran way, why are you here? Shout out to Debbie. Happy birthday, Debbie. And I hope you're feeling very much better. I know that you recently had a surgery. Thank you for the kind words, and I hope you're feeling better. You're a joy of your positivity on the timeline is always needed.
Dual Threat Debbie is a legend around these parts, and she's speaking facts. Jason is always going to keep a level head about this team, and he's going to have the right emotions when the time comes, and he's 100% correct. As you guys know, too, about me, I'm a player advocate. I don't dump on this team unless it's like 100%, 150% warranted. I wanted to cut Josh Norman instantly on the live when that occurred. It was one of the most egregious things that I've seen on a football field with the 49ers in some time. Again, you talked about it. You're 100% right, Jason. Leadership, the reason why you bring these guys in is to be the example, to be the guys to set the tone for everyone else and be an example for these young guys. And what Josh Norman did, on top of just not being a good football player at this point in his career and seemingly being a penalty magnet, to go out of his way to, again, that they needed that stop, that they needed that momentum right there. They needed that specific stop, and he gave them an extra opportunity because he couldn't control his emotions. And that is a huge red flag. That is a huge red flag. And like you alluded to it as well, for me, the second he turned on Tavon Wilson, I lost it. I was already upset that he was going after Cliff Kingsbury and doing all that nonsense. The second you turn on your guy who's trying to get you back to the sideline, it's a wrap. You know, he's throwing elbows at Wilson, all that. I was like, oh, no way. And to double down to make the situation even worse, and like you said, make an example, Kyle Shanahan seemingly came out and defended Josh Norman, saying basically, I actually think he's been playing okay. And you're just like, God damn it, just Kyle, please. Like, you had a golden opportunity to kind of get the fan base just a little bit back on your side, to make an example of a veteran who's been there and done that and knows better, and put your team in a position to be unsuccessful. You don't come out and say you actually think he's been playing well. That's your opportunity to come out and set the tone, set an example of, this is unacceptable. This is not what we expect from our leaders on this team. This is not what we expect from our young guys on this team. And it's frustrating, equally frustrating for me as well. It's just a situation where Josh Norman is already not at a level where I could care less about him being on this team. Again, he wasn't drafted by this team. He wasn't brought in the offseason as part of the overall long-term plan of at least this year. He's a hired mercenary. For a lack of a better word, he's a scrub off the street. There's a reason why he was sitting on the couch, and he is now on this team.
And here it is, Brad. If that's Uncle Sherman, and he's here as a guy who's mentoring people, and maybe he flies off at the handle or something like that, that's one thing. Josh Norman literally being brought here for depth and his veteran presence, and he's not going to be here next year one way or another. He may not be here by the end of the season. That is the problem. And you had to make an example of him right there. If you wanted to show this locker room that you're trying to keep it intact, when guys make mistakes, player 1 through 53, you have to hold them accountable and show the young guys that that this is what it does. Say what you want about Mike Singletary. He would have sent him off. He wouldn't have been allowed to stand on the field with that team. Can't play with him, can't coach with him, can't win with him, can't do it. And look what that did for Vernon Davis. Look what that did for Vernon Davis. Unlocked his career. Obviously, another coach reaped those benefits. But that message that Mike Singletary was giving was the correct one. No matter if you think he was a good coach or not, he did the right thing.
Yeah, and that's what we would have liked to see out of Kyle. We would have liked to see that opportunity to again make an example. Obviously, the rib injury, the rib fracture for Josh Norman has occurred. Maybe they can't cut Josh Norman because he is injured. There could be some red tape there, so I don't know how that necessarily works. But he could have did a little bit more emphatic job of setting the tone. And again, we know how it works. It's human nature when you got leaders and people of higher ilk than other players on the roster, you use those guys as positive examples, but you also use them as an example of this is not how you do it. This is not how we go about our business. And I don't feel like, at least externally, Kyle did that. Now that could be a different conversation that they're having inside that building, in between closed doors. Absolutely could. But at least from the external view, which right now the 49ers have a pretty big PR problem. They just have a really big branding, messaging, just lots of problems. So that would have been an opportunity to again kind of reinforce that that type of behavior is not acceptable, and again give something to the fan base to rally around, because I think John Chapman put out a poll about, is Josh Norman the least hated or the most hated 49er now or something, and he put him up there with Kyle Williams and Blaine Gabbert and some other guys, and Josh Norman came in second behind Kyle Williams, and not by a lot,
All right,
and
but
that's saying a lot.
look, man, with Kyle Williams, people hate him because of fumbles, right? He didn't go out of his way to be a jerk on the field or anything like that. I feel for that guy, right? Like you're upset because it cost the 49ers a Super Bowl chance, right? But I don't hate Kyle Williams, man. I feel like that's extreme, man. Like in this case, give me the guy who's still at least trying his hardest, even if he makes the wrong mistake. He's not like trying to fumble the football. You know, Josh Norman was being an idiot. And that's why I think he should have been leading that, because you are putting yourself above the team. Realistically, Kyle Williams just made two mistakes in the biggest game of his life. And, you know, I wouldn't say that you should hate Kyle Williams. I think that's the difference. You know, you're upset at what Kyle Williams did, but the kid tried, man. He wasn't like trying to fumble. Norman just threw everything aside and said, I don't care that we just got off the field on third down, that we desperately needed to maybe get back in this game. I want to yap at Cliff Kingsbury, and I want to hit the guys that are trying to calm me down. That's much more egregious in my eyes than fumbling away a chance to the Super Bowl, because at least the guy tried.
I couldn't agree any more with that take. That is the exact thought process when I looked at that poll, and I voted Josh Norman as the most hated 49er, because just like AJ Jenkins didn't draft himself in the first round. That's Trent Baalke. That's Trent Baalke mishap, and AJ Jenkins gets the blast. Again, everyone knew AJ Jenkins wasn't a first round talent coming out of Illinois, but that's the GM's fault. Same thing with Kyle Williams. Kyle Williams was a player that I really like was he brought to the team. I like his mentality. It's just unfortunately he just big blunder that had huge implications. I don't hate him. I hate the moment. I don't hate Kyle. Josh Norman, on the other hand, he could never wear red and gold ever again, and I would be absolutely happy about that. Let's get off Josh Norman. I think we made our points clear that we weren't happy with the situation. We don't necessarily love how it was handled outwardly, at least towards fans and towards media, and we'll see what comes of that. Of course, Josh Norman has the fractured ribs. I hope we don't see him play again. And again, we got a guy. I got Lenore's jersey right behind me. Shout out to Lenore for his new baby boy entering the world. But let's just turn the page, because what is Dre Kirkpatrick getting absolutely demolished by Eno Benjamin, and Josh Norman causing a ruckus for no? What do these guys offer at this point? Do you are you kind of that mindset that it's time to start developing younger players, specifically like guys on defense such as Diamador Lenore, Ambry Thomas? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, we know what Drake Kirkpatrick and Josh Norman are. And nobody's making any grand statement when they say Drake Kirkpatrick and Josh Norman are terrible or they're washed. I mean, they were depth pieces, right? At this point, I can live with the rookie mistakes. It just means that you're taking notes and you're developing. That's it. That play that you're talking about, the Drake Kirkpatrick play, that was so, that encapsulated what's wrong with this team right now because there was so many miscommunications. I love Aziz Al Shair. He had a rough game. He runs into the wrong hole, and there's no communication on the back end. That's what leads Drake Kirkpatrick to see Eno Benjamin with a head full of steam headed his way. And unfortunately, that's what happens. At this point, I will live with those mistakes if it's in the name of development at this point. What in the world are you doing playing these guys? Drake Kirkpatrick, you should have known after the Colts game. This man, the ball gets thrown at him. It's a jump ball. He stands there and watches the ball get caught over his head. At this point, I know what both of these guys are. You are this whole tired mentality of, well, he's a veteran. He knows what to do. No, no. At this point, you might as well take your lumps with the guys. Like I said, Hufanga got burnt a little bit in this game. You know, they exploited his speed. They know that he's a slower guy. He has to stay in the middle of the field, a little bit more of a box, but they knew where to attack him. But at this point, I'm kind of glad it happened. You know why? Hufanga gets to see it in speed, watch it on tape, play with instinct, understand that this is how you're going to be attacked, and learn from it. Drake Kirkpatrick cannot fix any of these things because he is who he is. Same with Josh Norman. So in that regard, this whole idea of, well, they're veterans, let's put them out there, they're going to be more solid. No. At this point, take your lumps and figure out if Lenoir's getting beat in coverage, cool. Put it on tape, learn. That's it. That's the only way they're going to learn. And that's really where I'm at with it at this point. This idea that veterans somehow shore up your defense when these are guys that Drake Kirkpatrick wasn't getting any calls. Josh Norman was on the street as well too. Wasn't like people were busting down their doors. And you know, a lot of this, what's going on with the cornerback room, has to do with the way that this roster was constructed. Because all offseason, when people ask me, "What are your concerns?" Cornerback, because you were banking, unfortunately, for Jason Verrett to have, you know, a healthy season again, and you knew that if God forbid something happened to him, that this was gonna be bad, and yet you did nothing. You did nothing to address that. AJ Boye was out there for you to go get. Steven Nelson was out there for you to go get. These are veterans that are not washed, not the guys that are just on the street after training camp. You had a chance to address this, and you didn't. So that's a whole other conversation in the way that this roster was built. Because even I can't build an NFL roster, but I can see where you're weak. And anybody, Stevie Wonder, Ray Charles, they were like, man, the corners are in trouble on this team if something happens to Jason Verrett. It happens. You had no plan for it, and now here we are. And this falls on the front office in this case.
100%. And both you and I were at training camp. We were rookies ourselves covering training camp. This was our first training camp, both of us. And both of us, anyone who had two pairs of eyes could see that the secondary depth was a glaring issue in camp. And we're like, dog, we're not even a preseason yet. We're already down. We're already down. Tart was, he was dealing with his issue. We had injuries at cornerback. Obviously, we lose Jason Verrett in the first game of the year, but we could tell like the depth behind guys because Emmanuel Mosley wasn't there to start camp. So we got to see more Ambry Thomas, and we saw what was going on, and we were just like, man, like there might be good traits there, but those guys need more time to develop. And we don't see anyone here in camp that is really going to be able to provide any real level of adequate play if they were forced to come in and play. And that's kind of where we're at right now.
I've got something that's kind of controversial that I want to say. I spoke to somebody who is on your team, plays for this team, and guess who they wanted to see over both of those guys play? And that is going to be great because I agree wholeheartedly. I wish Dante Johnson was in the game. There. How about that? That's where we're at.
I actually don't mind that.
If you're going to talk about Drake Kirkpatrick and Josh Norman, Dante Johnson's on this roster because they trust him for some reason. And what this player told me was at least I know he'll do his job because he understands the system. And at the end of the day, he probably wouldn't have got blown up by Eno Benjamin. And for everybody who likes to go crazy on Dante Johnson and make fun of him, if you remember the Arizona game, right? Remember the Arizona game. The Arizona game, he actually forced a fumble that almost swung that game the other way, right? And then the one catch that he allowed, because he allowed one catch, if you remember that play, it was Kyler Murray off his back foot throwing a fadeaway pass to Rondell Moore and he made one of the best catches I've ever seen in my life. So if you guys have film of Dante Johnson getting absolutely roasted or being, having penalties, send it to me because that film does not exist. And that's my issue. What is going on in his decision making? Where did you get to a point where you thought Josh Norman and Drake Kirkpatrick could do a better job than a guy that you will never let go on this roster? Death taxes and Dante Johnson. I would have rather seen Dante Johnson, and other people on this team would have rather seen Dante Johnson in that spot.
And people don't want to admit it, but Dante Johnson has some of the best individual plays on defense for the entire year. He forced a fumble. He's done some good things. Again, he's Dante Johnson. We know what he is. He's 9 lives Dante Johnson. He's going to stick around. But I didn't even think about it like that. I really didn't even think about that. And I would imagine too. Again, Dante Johnson has been in this locker room. He's been with this group. He knows exactly like you pointed to. A player that you've spoken to said, "Man, what are we doing?" They're questioning their own roster moves, and rightfully so. And that's how. Again, we've talked about all offseason. Again, Jason, you and I being at camp, we're just like, man, if this doesn't work out, how they're managing this, we do see a path how you lose the locker room. We talked about that. We talked about that at length. And guess where we are? And I'll ask you this question, Jason. Whether you know or not, do you feel like Kyle Shanahan has lost the locker room?
I can't say, and I don't want to speculate on that and run with some narrative or anything like that because I'm not here for the hot takes or anything like that. I will say that there is some head scratching right now going on from players, tenured players on this roster, tenured players. And I know people are going to say, you don't talk to anybody. That's fine. You can believe what you want. I promise you that I've spoken to players on this team and they talk to us. They do. Yes, there is a bit of head scratching. Some people questioning why people are still on this roster when they haven't had to do some of the things that other players have had to do in terms of, let's say you're a corner on this team that's not seeing any snaps at corner. Why aren't they on special teams? Why aren't they earning it in other ways? Why aren't you making guys earn it in other ways? So look, again, everybody likes to make fun of Dante Johnson or whatever, blah, blah, blah. That's fine. It's fine. Dante Johnson's a solid player, but I think that it's way too overblown. Again, if you have film of Dante Johnson getting cooked, if you have it, send it to me. And don't send me that Philly game. Don't send me that Philly game last year where Fulham made that catch because Dante Johnson was in perfect spot, tore his groin on the play, and Carson Wentz threw the pass of his life. So that's not him getting cooked. I've got film of guys getting cooked this week that Dante Johnson has never been cooked like. And that's the thing. It's like, what are the decisions that's going into this? And are you just playing guys because they used to be really good in this league as opposed to what's going on right now? Like with Josh Norman, accept the fact that Dante Johnson's starting over you. Because when camp started, here's another thing. When camp started, Emmanuel Mosley wasn't available. So as camp starts, the practice begins, the team goes through their walkthrough on defense. The first team defense goes out there. Guess who was the corner across from from Jason Verrett? It was Dante Johnson. It was. Now look, no, it doesn't sound good, but when did the change happen? When what have you seen from Josh Norman and Drake Kirkpatrick that says I need to play him over these guys? Again, I still would like to see the rookies, but I'm talking about if you're going to go veteran and you want to stick with a veteran presence. There's no bigger veteran presence than the guy who's going to be on this roster in 2045. When I tell my kids he's the longest tenured 49er, and Frank Gore and Frank Gore Sr. are going to be, and Frank Gore Jr. are going to be on the roster. Like those are I'm just trying to be funny, but at this point, honestly, it's just really you should be asking these questions, and that's the thing. You have a guy on your roster that people trust, the team trusts, and they trust him to be sound and fundamental in the scheme, and yet you keep rolling out these guys who continuously get cooked. Drake Kirkpatrick got cooked on Sunday Night Football. That's not something that happens to Dante Johnson. No matter how many jokes you want to make, doesn't make it true.
You're making me laugh just to not to cry,
Oh yeah,
basically
that's why
at
I'm
this
doing it.
point. So you're keeping the mood up, even though what we're talking about is very sad at the end of the day. Because again, these are all things that anyone with two eyeballs who understands how to watch football can see. We saw it in camp. We're seeing it continuing to happen. So how do they address the safety position, Jason? With Tavon Wilson going down for a couple weeks, obviously Talanoa Hufanga is we know the scouting report. Talanoa Hufanga is very smart, cerebral, and that puts him in position to make plays and overcomes some of the long speed limitations. But you alluded to it earlier. We saw him get burnt on the long speed a couple times based on them throwing behind or at the line of scrimmage, getting some blocking out front, and you needed to see those safeties take the angles, do those types of things to be the back end support. And you saw some of the speed get exposed. What comes next with the safety position? Is Jaquiski Tartt coming through that door anytime soon? Do you think Ward's coming back? How do you envision this? Because now we are down to our what third and fourth. We're down to our third and fifth string safety now. So what are you thinking?
I mean, pray to Superman that Jimmy Ward is walking through that door this week. I mean, Tar has 2 more games at least. He's already on short-term IR. So he's got 2 more games that he's left on where he can't play. So that's not going to happen. Hufanga can be fine, right? And that's the thing. Um, you got to hope that Ward is there because now what's the alternative? Do you move Marcel Harris back over there? I mean that could be the only other thing I could really think of. Jared Maiden's not here, which I mean let's just keep it a buck. I mean, that might be a blessing because, he didn't really perform very well either, but you have to really hope that Jimmy Ward is available in this game because the stress that is going to be put on this secondary with Cooper Kupp, who leads the league in every single receiving category right now at this point. The way that Stafford throws the ball, the way that McVay is calling up these plays, they are going to exploit this defense. And I think that for all those people that are upset about Jimmy Ward doesn't do this, doesn't cause turnovers. Bet you miss Jimmy Ward now. Bet you miss Jimmy Ward now. Don't ask for the grass being greener on the other side. I told you and told you and told you. There is no more solid safety in this league that can do more and erase routes and not get burned than Jimmy Ward. But everybody wants flashy interceptions and flashy picks. Guess what? The best players are the ones that are not allowed to develop, and that is Jimmy Ward. And the reason that you're seeing it now is because Jimmy Ward has been relatively healthy the entire time that he's finally gotten over the injury bug. You better put some respect on that man's name. And I hope that anybody who was a naysayer now sees the light that he is very much needed. And without him, this defense is super exposed to deep routes and coverage gaps and busts and things like that because Jimmy Ward does not bust.
And not even just the coverage. I can think of 28 points off the top of my head that Jimmy Ward saved, at least on being the last line of defense. There's no one else. It was him. It was him versus the ball carrier, and he makes an open field tackle and saves a touchdown. He is missed, definitely, absolutely, and I think we're kind of seeing that kind of as a result. Hopefully, he comes walking through that door because we need all the help in the secondary that we can get at this point. But let's switch over to the offensive side of the football. Talk to me a little bit about Brandon Ayuk's emergence. Talk to me a little bit about Debo Samuel. He's able to produce, but I think because he's able to produce, one of the kind of underlying things with the offense is Debo's still dropping the ball at a pretty high rate. It feels like, I don't know if it's accurate or not. I'm just going off the top of my head. It feels like he's dropping 2 balls a game, and sometimes in big spots. So just talk to me a little bit about Brandon Ayuk, Debo Samuel, and kind of your thoughts on that position.
Well, I think you got a little bit of a glimpse of what this offense can be when both of them are clicking. And you're right about the drops. But I think that all things considered this season, yes, it's still an issue. And yes, that's something he can pick up. Like, literally, here's what I'll point to. Deontay Johnson last year dropped almost every single pass. And through work, and he worked, and he worked, he's not dropping the ball anymore. And he's still a very good wide receiver. So that can be worked on. And you know what? You don't want to see the drops, that's fine. But Debo Samuel has far exceeded his his expectations this season, and he is the driving engine of this offense. So I'm not gonna be upset with him like that. You're absolutely right; those drops are there. That's fine, but he's done too much this year for you to just say, "Oh, well, he's dropping the ball." Listen, that's everybody. Nobody's perfect. He needs to work on that. I'm sure he knows that. That's fine. There he is. There he is. Um, so yes, that's a bit of a concern, but I feel like that's fine. Realistically, what I was happy about was that Debo Samuel made it through this game, and we didn't really hear too much about the calf flaring up. Now we're gonna find out in a little bit what's going on with him in practice and how it feels, because apparently it was worse this week than it was the week before. But he got through the game, and that was fine. Ayuk, hi buddy, there you are. That's it. That's it. That's how that offense can look when it's clicking. When George Kittle's there, when Ayuk is there, that's that offense. I understand. I understand that it wasn't the results you wanted, but that passing offense, that was kind of what you envisioned in our heads when we said, man, what about when Debo and Ayuk and Kittle are all on the field? That's it. I mean, Debo makes the plays in his hands. When the ball's in his hands, Brandon Ayuk was making some of the most contested catches. That touchdown was electric. He looked like he's all the way back. I don't know what he was back from, but that looked like the guy that we thought we were getting. And the same thing with George Kittle. So in terms of that, there's a positive that you can walk away with. Brandon Ayuk had his best game of the season against a top flight pass defense. Byron Murphy played in this game. He didn't play in the first one. And he looked great, a fumble aside. Debo Samuel made it through healthy. But I think that you got a small glimpse of what the future is going to look like, since both of these guys are going to be a part of that. So yeah, I mean, and look, Terrell Owens went through it, right? Even in the catch game, he went through it as well too. So that can be fixed. That can absolutely be fixed when it turns to Debo. So I haven't really seen too much of an outpouring talking about that or anything like that, just because I think Debo's done too much this year for you to even say anything really negative about him. Basically putting the team on his back and for a little while saving the season in Chicago and other weeks. But to see Brandon Ayuk come along and go through whatever he went through, him and Kyle Shanahan had words, did whatever that means. But even after the fumble, he didn't hang his head, and he looked like he couldn't wait to get back out on the field, and he responded very well. So I think those are two things that you can really hang your hat on, is that Debo probably got out of this game relatively healthy, should be better, especially because they're both going to be needed on Monday Night Football. So in terms of momentum, the 49ers are going to have to score points. I mean, clearly you can't win a game without scoring points, but I mean, the offense is going to have to do a lot of the heavy lifting on Monday night if they're going to pull off this upset.
I think you make all the beautiful points in the world there. I agree. Debo Samuel has had some drops, but he is second in the NFL receiving yards with 882 over 8 games. He's averaging over 110 reception yards a game, and that's a lot of that's coming after the catch as well. So Debo Samuel, although he is dealing with a couple drops here or there, he's still producing like at an insane level. So it's just, to me, I look at it as a situation where the 49ers could even get better in that regard. And you get the emergence of Brandon Ayuk, and you see what we've all been longing for this entire season from Brandon Ayuk, getting out there and making a huge impact. I mean, even on that fumble, for him to be able to go up and high point that ball the way he did, it was beautiful. Absolutely beautiful catch. The touchdown in the back of the end zone, Jimmy Garoppolo getting it over a couple defenders. It was a contested catch. You go back and look at it. You got two defenders draped all over Brandon Ayuk. He goes up and gets it. So there's tons of positives to look at from there. Again, it's just the ability to finish, the overall vibe of the team. I mean, at one point, Jimmy Garoppolo was 25 for 35 with over 300 yards and 2 touchdowns, no picks. Obviously, we understand what happened as a result of them trying to fight their way back in. He gets the pick at the end, but I would say Jimmy Garoppolo, through the last 2 weeks, hasn't really been an issue or something that we've been able to go back and look at and say, well, Jimmy Garoppolo's playing, not playing good, or we're not able to get back into games. It feels like the 49ers are still losing despite getting good play out of Jimmy Garoppolo. Even held to, like we were talked about, good play out of George Kittle, good play out of Brandon Ayuk and Debo Samuel. And they're still taking an L, unfortunately. Also, too, really quickly, while we stay on the wide receiver position, Mohamed Sanu is going to be out for a couple weeks now. Who do you think steps up? Because Mohamed Sanu is the prototypical big slot for Kyle. Is that going to be a Jawan Jennings fill, or do you think it's going to be kind of a dual situation between Juwan Jennings and our preseason GOAT, Trent Sherfield?
It has to be either one of those two, or either you're gonna start running Kittle in the slot a little bit more, or get Ross Dwelly involved a little bit more, because Ross Dwelly is somebody who I feel like he's not much of a blocker, but I mean he can be fine. Jimmy throws him the ball, and then go back on what you talked about with Jimmy Garoppolo. Jimmy Garoppolo is not the reason this team lost this game. Just not. Not at all. And he may not win you this game. He may not win you games or anything like that. That's fine. But at the same time, for people to say, oh my God, he was terrible. Look, man, he wasn't. And he wasn't the reason. So you got to hope that it's either Sherfield, Jennings, maybe a little bit Ross Dwelly. Maybe they get creative in the way that they are running their personnel. A little bit more Kittle in the slot, see Warner in there being that point, that talking, that blocking tight end, but I will say this: the last 2 weeks, Jimmy Garoppolo built off of his good half on the Bears with the Bears, and for people who are like, "Oh, it's all garbage time," the Cardinals weren't playing prevent. It's not like they were just letting passes get through there. Listen, you want to talk about high passes? Fine. That's Jimmy Garoppolo, though. You're not shattering the earth by saying anything like that. You're not breaking news to anybody that Jimmy Garoppolo's throwing the ball high. At the same time, he still was able to complete some passes. Obviously, if you go back on the film and you're like, look at the misread. You don't know the progressions. You don't know where the ball is supposed to go. You don't know if it's 1-2 or where it's at. So please stop showing me about misreads if you don't understand the concept. I hate to sound like one of those guys, but don't tell me he missed his read. You don't know where the progressions are. You don't know where they are. So that's the thing. Like, they moved the ball, and this is a great point by Octavio. They moved the ball into the other territory, and they fumbled the ball. Let me guess. That was Jimmy. See, like, again, I can still right here look everybody in the face and say I want Trey Lance to start, while telling you that Jimmy Garoppolo is not the problem. And Jimmy Garoppolo is gonna eventually lose his job, whether they start losing or whatever. But it's not gonna be because he's playing terribly. And that's the thing. It's not because he's playing terribly. It's just because it's time, and you have to give valuable reps. So that's it. That's it, man.
Yeah. So we're stuck in that limbo, right? Of I think both of us want to see Trey Lance, but we also understand at the same time Jimmy Garoppolo right now doesn't feel like the problem. Obviously, I think we've been able to kind of identify there seems to be some kind of odd energy between head coach and quarterback, or head coach and offense, and whatever. That's my personal kind of vibe. We'll see. But there's just something off right now with this offense, with this team. And again, even when they've shown ability to move the ball, it's self-inflicted fumbles by George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk. Again, both of them, both just absolute, just flukes. It's really hard to, because we were breaking it down yesterday with George Kittle. He got punched out from the behind. Again, he's hurt mid hurdle. You watch him before the hurdle. He's high and tight with the football. He goes to hurdle. The ball kind of gets away from a little bit, and just perfect timing by Byron Murphy to punch it out. And it's just like it's just one of those perfect timing, situations where maybe Byron Murphy gets there a second earlier or a second later, and then maybe that's not a fumble because you don't get the perfect timing of that action. Same thing with Brandon Ayuk. We talked about number 20, their cornerback, who didn't touch him when Brandon Ayuk goes down. Any veteran or kind of savvy cornerback knows that once the wide receiver goes to the ground, you got to touch him for him to be down. 20 doesn't. 20 just like, I didn't make the play, I didn't do it. And that's enough for Brandon Ayuk to get back up. And then same thing, here comes Isaiah Simmons, punches a ball out from behind. So it's just like they can't catch a break at this point. Um, but they were moving the ball, and they were able to, again, produce. It's just the timing of how they produce and all those kinds of things that's seemingly off a little bit. So, based on, is there anything else from the Arizona game that you would like to touch on? Offense, defense, special teams?
Eric Armstead plays really well when he's on the inside. Novel idea. Imagine that.
I hate it here. I don't know why. I don't know. Like, I don't know why the 49ers like as a it doesn't matter which GM's in, which head coach is in. They just love this thought of putting Eric on the edge. And I don't mind him on the edge and base downs, but man, he's tailor made to destroy guards. He really is. And I really think you could. Sorry, I was going on a rant. Continue. Sorry.
No, I'm waiting for Spicy Brad to pull up Spicy Sourdough, man. I mean, but it's true. I mean, that's the thing. It's again, say what you want, whatever you paid him, he's out of position. And look what happens when he plays in his position. Like it's right there in front of you. It's not even some foreign concept or some conspiracy theory. He was the best defender on the field yesterday. I mean, on Sunday, right? Um, that's what I wanted to touch on. I mean, more than anything, everything else is. Oh, here's something really good. Trent Williams is better than everyone in the world at playing left tackle. Everyone. And what I will say is this: while from the outside looking in, and people would have no real basis of knowing this because a lot of talk has been about who are the leaders on this team, who's speaking up. We don't know what's going on in the locker room. I will tell you this: last play of the game, game well in hand, game very well in hand. Your left tackle, your high-priced left tackle, is still playing his ass off until the last play. He's actually blocking 1 and 2 guys. He will not let anyone through. He is the highest, and this doesn't matter because PFF isn't the Bible, but it fits my narrative, so I'm going to run with it. He is the highest graded offensive player in football. Trent Williams, very good at football still, and you need to recognize that he's the best.
The tape doesn't lie. That's one instance where the PFF grade matches the tape. Like Trent Williams has been on a completely different level, and you said it. He's the best left tackle in the NFL. He's the best offensive lineman in the NFL. I went spicy Brad yesterday, and I was like, let's start talking about Trent Williams as the best player in the NFL. We understand that will never happen for these offensive linemen, but as an offensive lineman advocate, I'm gonna do everything I can to get those boys some love. But I agree, Trent Williams has been playing at an extremely high level. Even Lincoln Tomlinson. Lincoln Tomlinson has been playing pretty well as well. Alex Mack too. He has his ups and downs, but from a consistency basis, he's more consistent often than not. Now, let's actually talk about the right side of the offensive line a little bit because this is going to be a situation that I think is going to be: do we try to develop, or what are we trying to do with the right side? Because I get like I'll start with this. Brunskill's my guy. He's the first player that I've ever interviewed, so I got a special heart for Brunskill, special place for Brunskill in my heart. But I do understand that he is adequate. I would say he's able to do the job, but we do see the instances, and he's been stacking up some losses the last couple weeks too in pass protection that are hard to ignore. So, and with the season kind of spiraling out of control, you lose Mike McGlinchey for the season on the right. Who's going to play right tackle? Is it going to be Jalen Moore? Is it going to be Tom Compton? Is it going to be Aaron Banks? Is it going to be Daniel Brunskill? I don't know if Kyle Shanahan wants to put 2 rookies, at least one that's unproven, and Aaron Banks to be with Jalen Moore. Now, to play devil's advocate, I sure enjoyed watching Jalen Moore and Aaron Banks play on the left side together at the Senior Bowl because those boys were road grading at the Senior Bowl, playing together in tandem at left tackle and left guard. Now, can we replicate some of that? Can we move them over to the right? Again, that's both a new position for them, regardless of being on the offensive line, going from left to right when you've never done it before. There is a learning curve that comes with it. Do they want to live with that learning curve? Or, Jason, is it the Tom Compton show at right tackle? Do they move Brunskill to right tackle? What is your whole take? I don't think there's any right answer at this point.
Oh, there's a right answer.
Okay, let's hear it.
Not Tom Compton. I mean, not only does he not belong at right tackle, he does not belong on an NFL roster. And that has been the case for 3 consecutive years. Okay? That one. What I want from 49er fans is I want this. I want your apologies to Mike McGlinchey. I want your apologies very loud as the disrespect. Here's what else I want. I want you to stop acting like playing left tackle means you can just flip right over to right tackle with no sort of reps and making it seem like Jalen Moore is already there. Now, here's another thing. Here's one more thing. I want Jalen Moore to start at right tackle. I do. You know what I want? I want you guys to not jump down his throat when he gets beat because it is not easy. This is not Pop Warner football. Just because you played left tackle does not mean you get to move to right tackle and there's a seamless transition. Stop talking like it's so easy to do. And Jalen Moore struggles. I don't want to hear, oh my God, he's a bust. Just be level headed. Understand where you're at and understand how valuable Mike McGlinchey was. Because no matter what you want to say about his pass protection, he does not miss games. He does not miss games. And there is no clear-cut answer on the bench. And there never has been. I want the Mike McGlinchey slander to stop because you got to see what life is like without Mike McGlinchey. And now you are about to really see what it's like because guess who's coming to town? Yeah, that's right. So stop with this whole Pop Warner, oh, he played left tackle, he can play right tackle. That's not how the NFL works. And if Jalen Moore struggles, do not start killing him online. Oh my God, he's trash. Wake up. And I'm hurting from Mike right now. But at the same time, you don't know what you got till it's gone. And the grass is not greener on the other side without Mike McGlinchey. I am sorry. Don't know who needed to hear that, but I'm glad I was able to get those bars off.
Jason, I needed to hear that. That just made my soul feel fantastic. I love hearing Jason come out the seat to defend Mike because again, Mike will be missed, and you saw it immediately, immediately with Tom Compton coming in. Hell, we can talk about Daniel Brunskill. I saw Daniel Brunskill completely go vertical, not vertical, go horizontal to throw his body in front of the guy that Compton just got cooked on to the inside. And it's like you don't see Brunskill having to pick up Mike McGlinchey's guy like that. Like those two, I think we even talked about it on the last State of the Franchise episode, their communication, the way they were working in tandem. Now, maybe like individually they would struggle if you go if like say for example they're sliding protection to the left side, which leaves Brunskill and McGlinchey on an island. We would see Brunskill get walked back a little bit in those scenarios. But what those two were, I don't go. You challenged listeners to go pull the tape. Go pull the tape of Mike McGlinchey and Daniel Brunskill not passing off a defensive line stunt. Though that's hard to do, especially when defenders are trying to grab you and hold you in a position so you get a looping underneath defender. Doesn't allow these offensive linemen to switch and pick it up. Those two were goated at D-line stunts. They were able to and that comes from repping it. That comes from communication. That comes from being on the same page. Now, now we don't know. If they throw stunts at that side, is Tom Compton going to be able to pick up the looping defender? Is he going to be able to pass off the guy to Brunskill, be in the right spot? We don't know. And like I said, they were so good at that because that comes from continuity. That comes from working together. That comes from working in tandem. Now that's fractured. So it's really tough, and I'm glad you put the respect on Big Mike because he deserves it. It's unfortunate that it took him going down for people to stand up, and I know you've been on Mike's side, but other people to come out and start talking about, oh, Mike's actually been having it's like it's so that's beside the point. The biggest question is though, as how do they move forward? Tom Compton is not the answer. He's not. I would feel more comfortable at this time doing exactly what you said. Taking Jalen Moore, putting him on the right side, but there has to be an expectation that playing left tackle and right tackle is not equal. It's not like playing on the left side as a wide receiver and moving to the right side as a wide receiver. It's not the same. There's a lot of different footwork, technique, hand placement. Your brain has to process everything in a mirror form. It takes a lot. It takes a lot. And I think that's part of the reason why Aaron Banks has struggled moving from left guard to right guard, part of the switch too, from moving side to side. So I agree. I don't want to see really Tom Compton there. if they're going to put Jalen Moore there, there needs to be an understanding that he will likely struggle. He will make some mistakes. He will, like we saw mistakes against the Colts game. Like even though he had a clean game, you see Jalen Moore getting illegal man down field penalties because the whole offensive line is pass blocking, and he like again not being there's run pass options the way they call it in the huddle. There's 2 to 3 types of plays they can run. If he doesn't key on the checks, he doesn't key on the same thing and communicating what the other offensive line is going to do, he's going to do something different. That comes along with the territory. That takes repping, that takes repetition and doing it over and over again and working together. So I agree. Put Jalen Moore at right tackle, allow him to take those bumps and bruises, and don't kill him for it when they occur. Because again, reminder, playing offensive line is very difficult. And then when you're forced to switch sides to side when you haven't done it before, that is difficult. So we'll see what happens and how they manage that. Colton McKivitz, like we talked about on the show, was called up from the active roster. Colton McKivitz was a surprise cut. I know I talked to some players in the locker room as well when that happened, and they were a bit shocked that Colton McKivitz was let go for Tom Compton. But now Colton McKivitz is up. Maybe Colton McKivitz steps into that right tackle position, which he's played before. I even think he played it in camp a little bit. They kind of moved him. He's been one of those utility pieces that they had moved all over the place. So we'll see what happens. I think that's going to be one of the things that I'm going to be keying on this week overall, of how they get ready for the Rams. But that seems like a really nice transition here. We got Aaron Donald, Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp, the leading wide receiver in the NFL, Darrell Henderson, who has been, in my opinion, I call Henderson Dalvin Light. That's what he reminds me of. What is your vibe after I again this loss to the Arizona Cardinals was not what we wanted. We wanted to be springboarding into a very difficult matchup against the Rams. What's your vibe heading into this matchup on Monday night, where the entire world will be watching?
Look, the 49ers have to play like an absolutely desperate team. But here's the problem. McGlinchey's out. Ward may not play. You're down severely right now. And the Rams are upset with the way that they lost on on Sunday night, right? To Tennessee at home. Embarrassing. And for all the 49er fans, this is the one thing I want you to stop telling me. If you want to tell me that the 49ers are going to win this game, cool. I'm all for the optimism. Show me the plan on how we do it. And I'm sure there is a path to doing it, right? Crazier things have happened. We literally just watched the week where the Bills lose in Jacksonville. Denver beats Dallas. The 49ers lose to the Arizona Cardinals Z squad. There's crazier things that have happened. What I want you to stop telling me is that the 49ers own the Rams. The 49ers own the Jared Goff-led Rams. That ain't this. This ain't that. So throw those games away. I don't want to hear about 4 straight against Sean McVay when he had to hold Jared Goff's hand. That ain't that. This ain't that, man. Matthew Stafford, he had a bad game. It happens. But Cooper Kupp is playing out of his mind. Who is going to guard him? God help the secondary. And if this offensive line cannot block on the right side, you are about to watch a royal caning on national television. And I don't want to be all negative, doom and gloom, but how could you watch what the 49ers just put up against this Arizona team and think that they have a puncher's chance in this game? I mean, I could see a path to where they win this game, but the 49ers are going to have to play the best game of their season, the full, complete game that they have been missing. And this is something I've been talking about all week, basically. This is what's been going on all season with the 49ers. The 49ers realistically have 5 to 6 good quarters of football. Let me tell you that again. 5 to 6 good quarters of football. We are in week 10. That means for the large part of this year, they have had bad quarters. 1 week the offense shows up, 1 week the defense shows up. The only way that the 49ers win this game is if they play their most complete game. They play absolutely fundamental football. They do not turn the ball over. They're going to have to cause turnovers. These are all things that they haven't been doing at all this year. So, excuse me if I'm a little bit nervous going into this game and I don't have the butterflies and rainbows attitude towards this game, because the 49ers are going to have to do something in this game that they haven't been able to do all season, and that's put four very good quarterbacks, four very good quarters together. They have not done that once this year, not once. And six of those, I said six good quarters, three of them came in week one. Yes, look at Brad laughing.
It's so sad. I'm trying to laugh because it's so sad. You're spitting facts. The 49ers have not put together a full game this year. They have not just gotten flat out beat. You know what I'm saying? It's a continued situation where they beat themselves over and over again. Now, of course, you have to give credit to the guys on the other side. Tip your cap. We have had some good performances by some of the other teams, but at the same token, it's not being matched with a equally good performance, and then it's just, oh, the best team wins at that regard. It really feels like the 49ers just cannot get out of their own way. So I agree. I think going into this game, I think it, I don't know. We can poll the chat. We could poll the chat. Are there any fans that are optimistic going into this game? Are there any fans that do believe that we could actually come out with a victory at home, which is now becoming its own storyline of the 49ers not being able to win home games? There's a lot of things stacked against this team right now. It would do wonders if they were able to come out and complete 4 quarters of football. Hell, maybe miraculously win the game because the Rams decide to implode that day. You know, you never know. That's why we say any given Sunday. But let's say the stars align, the planets align, whatever you want to say. The 49ers come out and play a complete 4 quarters. Let's say the Rams don't play their best game that they've had all year. Maybe the ball does bounce the 49ers way. And again, hypothetically, they do get the win. What does that say for the season? Does that kind of rejuvenate this locker room? Does it rejuvenate the fan base? Because we understand they're not mathematically eliminated, but I know there's not a lot of hope right now. Do you think there's a potential ability to restore hope? Does it have to be the cleanest, like, best game we've seen of the year and a convincing win? Does it have to be a scrappy, still kind of same situation where we're making turnovers, mistakes, but we somehow scrap out a win? What needs to occur against the Rams for those butterflies to come back? Is it even possible at this point? And it's okay. We want real Jason to come out. Keep it 100 with us, Jason.
It's possible. It's not likely. And all the 49ers have to do, I don't care how it is. If they win, all they have to do is have more points than the Rams when it says zero. When it says zero, that's it. Doesn't matter how they get there. They have to find a way to get that. But I will tell you that a 49ers win would be the most on-brand thing that he could possibly do. Because the one thing that we know about the 49ers this season is that we don't know anything about them. And we don't know what's coming next. So a win would be right up the alley of this season, in which just when you think it's done, all of a sudden they win. Now, you have to hope that, I don't care how they win. They don't have to win convincingly. They have to have one more point than the Rams. That's it. I don't care how it happens. I don't care. But you have to hope that the 49ers can use that as a springboard, because they aren't mathematically eliminated. I don't want to talk about playoffs. I just want to win a game. You guys remember that? Got it. It doesn't matter how they win. Have one more point, at least, than the Rams at the end of the game. Then we'll move on to the next week. And then we'll see if that's a springboard. And I think that the crowd at Levi's, they need something, because they cannot get wins at home. I don't know what's happening. There's a lot of talk about voodoo and jinxes and things like that. And I mean, that's just where we're at. But the one thing that we know about the 49ers right now is that we don't know anything about them. and we can't predict anything about them. So a win would be completely on brand with how crazy this season has been in terms of what we thought would happen or what we think is going to happen going into a game. But realistically, it does not matter how they win. Style points do not matter in this case. The 49ers have to find a way to have one more point by the time that it hits zero on the fourth quarter than the Rams. That's it. And I think this fan base would breathe a sigh of relief for at least 1 week, and then that sort of optimism will go into next week. But then who the hell knows what's going to happen the week after that? So I think what we know is that we don't know. I mean, that's the best way I could put it.
We're on a week to week basis at this
That's
point.
it.
We're day to day at this point. We're just like half the roster. We're day to day. They're pulling fans off of IR. We'll see what happens because there's a lot that needs to happen and go right, at least from a projection standpoint based on the entirety of the year for them to come out with a win. It feels like it's really stacked against them. Again, they just add Von Miller, like great timing. Now he's coming into his second week. He's probably going to be he's going to be a lot more prepared than he was last week. And now we don't even know who our right tackle is. And then you combine those two with Aaron Donald. Imagine that they just stick Aaron Donald and Von Miller on the right side of our offensive line. I'm praying for those guys. I mean, Daddy Brunskill made his reputation off of blocking up Aaron Donald, but it's like we talked about earlier. You're running stunts with Aaron Donald and Von Miller. You better have an offensive line that is capable of managing that and be on the same page to be able to swap that. And that's what's terrifying is that we don't know what we're going to see. I have no faith in Tom Compton. Jalen Moore is a different story. I have more faith in Jalen Moore, but again, he's going to have bumps and bruises along the way. So we'll see what happens in regards to that. How do you think the defense gets back on track? What do you think the defense needs to do right now against the Rams to be able to limit explosive plays, limit continued first downs and things like that?
Just get to the running game. I mean, so when you look at the numbers for the 49ers, they are so much better against the pass than they are against the run. And I know we have all our concerns with the secondary, but largely most of those yards that are gained are off of penalties. And it's not the amount of penalties, it's the type of penalties. It's pass interferences. Those don't go in the book as passing yards, though, right? But unfortunately, this team has a problem stopping the run. James Conner looked like Walter Payton last week. And that was after Chase Edmonds left after the second play. So if they're able to get the running game going with Darrell Henderson, and then Matthew Stafford is allowed to work off of play action, and these guys, whoever's going to be out there as safety, whoever's going to be a cornerback, are undisciplined, or their eyes aren't good, or they're not communicating, Matthew Stafford is going to make them pay because he can hit throws down the field that Colt McCoy can't. Largely what they did was they outflanked them, attacked them at the right spots, put guys who weren't fast in bad spots. But if Matthew Stafford sees a guy running down the field and it's 40 yards down the field, 50 yards down the field, he is going to, for lack of a better term, shout out to Eric Crocker, air that hoe out, and he's going to complete those passes. So, again, if you saw the coverage bust happen with Colt McCoy, play action has to be your biggest concern. You have to stay in your lanes. You have to stop the run, because if you're able to impede that a little and make them a little bit more one-dimensional, that's when you might have a shot. But if you're allowing them to run the ball, they're gashing you 5-6 every time with Darrell Henderson, and he's allowed to sit back there and pick you apart off of play action. It is going to be a long Monday night football game. You muted yourself.
Sorry, I actually muted myself. Hopefully it doesn't come to that, and hopefully it's not a very long day. DJ has a question, though. If we do pull out the win somehow, how do we react?
Have a drink, enjoy yourself, and just I think that any of us would clamor for a win, and I would just say, man, thank you. And I would wait for at least 2 whole days before I figured out what's going to happen with the next game, because this week, I feel like this week has been a month already, and it's only Wednesday. It's only Wednesday, and that's the thing, is that's what think about how good it felt, even though it came against a team like the Bears, who, by the way, what happens when rookie quarterbacks get reps, huh? Oh, that's a whole other story. We'll talk about that another day. But I know that they beat the Bears, but think about how good that was for that week, right? And I think that if they win, that's it. You shouldn't be looking forward down the line about what's going on. Again, it should be week to week. Just enjoy the win. That's it. And I think that all of us would welcome a week in where we're talking a win, no matter how it happens.
I actually think it's appropriate that you brought up Justin Fields because
Mm.
Jason Walsh would like to ask, is Kyle killing Lance's confidence still? Do you think that might be something that's happening? Because Mike Silver
Mhm.
put this in an article that Trey Lance, again, we've talked about it in the offseason. Trey Lance had a really good start to training camp. He was
Mhm.
balling out, seemingly faded. And Mike Silver referenced that Trey Lance lost his confidence. Do you feel like that's occurring?
I don't know about that. See, and here's the thing. Mike Silver's a notoriously Jimmy Garoppolo leaning guy. And that's something that when he
He was
talks
the
about,
guy. Do you remember when he said in the offseason that if Jimmy Garoppolo didn't play well in 2019, that Nick Mullins was going to take over?
right. And that's what's weird too. It's like I don't know what to believe, man. Look, what I saw was, a guy in the beginning, guns blazing. I don't know what happened. Remember and then remember too the context of camp. They weren't really running a lot of those plays that they ran. It would be like one day, the day that everybody was there from NFL Network, they unleashed the zone read, and everyone was excited, right? And then after that, I didn't really see too much of it. So do I know that his
Mhm.
confidence is being killed? I don't know, man. What I do know is this, and this is what he alluded to. Right now, if you spoke to a Bears fan and they just lost on Monday night, if you spoke to a Bears fan, you think that they're sad right now? Do you know why they're not sad? Because there's a glimpse, there's development, there's something that you can hang your hat on going into next season because you're seeing the growth. It's 2 straight weeks of Justin Fields growing. You live with the bumps and bruises, and Justin Fields didn't do that against the practice team. Pittsburgh Steelers are a top 5 defense. Get him on the field, man. Let him take his bruises. If the 49ers had the same exact record that they had right now, but Trey Lance started week one and he was making similar strides to Justin Fields, this fan base would feel completely different than they do because they were sold the dream of 2019 and 2019 vibes and all that stuff. And you're in this position now because you were naive to think that you could duplicate a season that, in my eyes, was unduplicatable. That's not even a word. You cannot duplicate what happened in 2019. So, again, context is needed. Talk to any Bears fan right now, and they are fist pumping right now. They're going into a bye week after a loss. They couldn't be happier. It's almost like they won the game. You know why? Their guy is progressing. They are seeing it. And that's what a successful season for a 49er fan should have been. Your expectations should have been damn the record. Can you see that progression from Trey Lance going into next year and hang your hat on the fact that this is how he looks now? Imagine how he'll look with a full off season and with the keys thrown to him. That is my rant on that, I guess.
And I think one of the reasons too why hell, I'm optimistic as a fantasy football owner of Justin Fields in Dynasty. I own Justin everywhere. I said I would, and I did it. I own him in at least 6 leagues, so I'm invested in him and his success. And so if I just want to look at it from that standpoint and kind of remove the 49er fandom and whatever from it, one of the positives about Justin Fields is he's doing this with a coaching staff and a roster and a supporting cast that is terrible, like garbage. They know that coaching staff will not be there. They know there's going to be a lot of changeover and a lot of switch, but the positives come from seeing him develop. Unfortunately, one of the things that we've looked at for this season and it potentially maybe not going the way they want it to go is the dynamic of drafting Trey Lance and keeping Jimmy Garoppolo and the awkwardness and the tension that is developed and brought on by that. So, although Jimmy Garoppolo is not playing like super bad or poor or anything of that nature, it's just they're not winning games now. And now we have this weird situation of, well, and I was talking about it against the Arizona Cardinals. Jimmy Garoppolo was not the reason why they were losing, but I was also like, I just feel like this team is desperate for a spark. Who's going to be that spark? Is it going to be one of these wide receivers? Is it going to be someone on defense? or is it just going to be like maybe get a different quarterback? And it wasn't even, and we were talking about it through the live. It's like Jimmy is not playing poorly. It's just where's the spark coming from? Fans of the Chicago Bears are excited because they have their spark. They see what's coming down the road, and so on and so forth. So we'll see. Again, the situation around the quarterback is going to be continue to be talked about. We knew that going into this year. Um, so it is what it is. It really is. Um, are you into betting at all?
I do prop bets because it's the best way to do it. It blends fantasy and gambling because if you're able to analyze matchups, then you're able to hit on certain player prop bets. So, for instance, this is a bad beat, but I had a player I had a four player prop bet for Thursday night against the Colts. It was Jonathan Taylor scores 2 touchdowns. Boom. Carson Wentz throws for 225. Boom. The Colts win by 5.5. Boom. They were blowing them out. Michael Pittman needed 70 receiving yards. He got 63. It was a plus 1,400 bet. It was gonna pay me out something like $300, $400, something like that. This close to nailing it. That close.
Damn. All
Bad
right. Well,
beat.
let's try this. Eric says Rams are only favored by 4. What are the chances the 49ers can cover this? Do you think there's a possibility they cover?
That feels like a trap. I think that when the money starts to come in, and I feel like that when the money starts to come in the other way, when people are like, "Oh yeah, the Niners are going to cover 4," that line is going to change a little bit. Like I don't know. That feels like a trap. I would stay away from that. I would probably bet the Rams over 4, honestly, in this one.
Yeah, yeah, that's going to be definitely a tough one. It does feel like a trap a bit, but we'll see what happens. There's a lot of volatility coming the 49ers way. Um, do we know? I don't think we know yet. We don't know when
We don't
Warren's
know
going to be
yet. I
back.
mean, what does Kyle has to speak in a little bit? I think, and we have to find out. So yeah.
Yeah, so we'll find out more about the injury situation. Um, Luke says, I love Hufanga, but want to see him convert to LB and find or keep true safeties. Thoughts. Again, I love Huff. He doesn't have to worry about deep coverage. Him next and Warner with the instincts. And again, I'm a big traits guy, so that's how I scout. And that's one of the first things that I said about Talanoa Hufanga is he's really good, but he doesn't have the long speed, which is why I don't like him playing safety. I thought they really drafted him to be a hybrid linebacker, to kind of come in and play maybe Sam or Will if he needed to, because I feel like he plays really good around the line of scrimmage. He has the short area quickness and reaction speed to be able to do that. But again, you see some of the limitations when you do put him single high or whatever, and he's the last line of defense. He doesn't have the Jimmy Ward speed or even Jaquiski Tart. Jaquiski Tart, man, was having a good year when all things are considered, and you take a step back. Jaquiski Tart was all over the place. Same with Jimmy Ward. You hit on it earlier. We already talked about it, but man, do they miss those two? They miss
Yeah.
those two a lot. What are your thoughts
And
on that?
Yeah, and literally with Hufanga, that one play that I'm particularly talking about, that shot that was over his head, the Christian Kirk, that's literally just something that he has to clean up in terms of his eyes, right? And he got flat-footed at the same spot. If you're playing, he's playing the 3, but the problem is that when he gets to the spot, he stops and he becomes flat-footed, and Christian Kirk just runs right by him. You don't have the speed to recover. Here's the thing: if you're on your toes and your back a little bit, and he cuts that under you, then you can make a play on that and you'll live with it, okay? Because it's at least a 9-yard catch, something like that. Cool, that's yards. But if he doesn't, that's the result that can happen. And again, that's all going to come with development and that's all going to come with time. But I do agree that he does need to be more of a box safety, definitely much more closer to the line, because he does have really good instincts. He plays with instincts, he doesn't play with speed, and he's good at diagnosing things. It's just that when he's left out there and it was a rookie mistake. That's it. I mean, it was a rookie mistake. That's all. So I'm not going to kill him for that as long as he learns from it. But when you see that 3 coming at you, you want to keep that in front of you. You can't allow yourself to even be compromised in that way. And I think, again, the Cardinals did a good job of making him decide and putting him in binds. And you know what? They understood. First start ever. Let's go ahead and let's see where this kid's at, because they knew where to attack him. And credit Cliff Kingsbury for that.
100%. And Jordan, or not Jordan, Jason. Jordan's lurking somewhere on Twitter right now. But how are you doing on time? Are you doing okay? Could you do a couple more questions, or should we?
Yeah, I got a few more minutes for you, definitely.
All right, let's wrap it up. Let's get maybe one or two more questions in, and then we'll. Jason has been spitting out hot fire today. That's why these state of the franchise episodes are so sick, because he really does a great job covering the entire team and the NFL for that matter. If you need fantasy advice, go to this dude. I don't know anyone who's more involved in fantasy than this guy. This guy's legit. Sean says, Brad, who's the better roster for our rookie quarterbacks, the Niners or the Bears?
The Niners. But what I wanted to point to about what you said, this is what really attracted me to Justin Fields. Look, I mean, you know the kid's skilled. You know he's got a rocket arm. You know he's fast. You know he's big. You know he's strong. What I was drawn to was his toughness
Mm-hmm.
and being able to continue to keep firing. The kid was not getting any calls, kept getting up, and when things were down, he kept firing. That's what drew me to Justin Fields, and that's what I was kind of hoping Kyle Shanahan would look at, because he had three quarterbacks who couldn't stay healthy, and not that you want your quarterback getting hit, but you know that he's going to take hits, and not only take hits, be able to play and be able to play well. He kept firing, and the lights were bright, man. And again, that wasn't against a scrub team on the other side. That's against the Pittsburgh Steelers on Monday Night Football.
TJ
And
Watt breathing down your neck. Woo.
dude, and then that throw to Darnell Mooney. That's it. Those are that. See, that's the stuff you already knew he could do. But what I was drawn to were the traits, the other stuff that's not tangible.
The intangible.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, like you can't phase the kid. You can't, and he's gonna keep firing, and that's what I saw. That's what got me excited. You know, again, Bears fans would tell you the same thing. Kept firing, kept on, and the deep shots. He's hitting these deep throws, and that's you know, I mean, I know that Colin Cowherd sometimes, because he takes on everything, is going to end up being wrong. The man speaks for 3 hours every single day and has a take on every single sport. You're going to get some things wrong. But he did say something that I wholeheartedly agreed with. When you watch him and he's dropping back and he's hitting those throws down the field, when the game's on the line, when it's money, that looks like a guy. And that's the eye test. And that's where it's at. And again, he's going to have more bumps and bruises this year. It's not all systems go all the way up right now, but that's the glimpse. That's what you're seeing. And if he gets any sort of help in terms of coaching, they show up that line a little bit more. Look out. If you're a Bears fan, you're walking around like you got your guy. Props to you. And it must be nice, honestly, at this point.
It must be nice. It must be nice when your rookies are out there balling. Not only, you know, you got Justin Fields balling, you got the young rookie over there, and Khalil Herbert at the running back position doing really well. We have a young rookie doing really well for us as well, and Elijah Mitchell. But Jason Morales wants to know, why isn't Trey Sermon playing? And did you see all the social media fuss that was created by Trey Sermon removing the 49ers from his bios on both Instagram and Twitter?
I don't want to talk about all that because I don't know what goes into all that. I'm sure the kid's frustrated. You know, when you get drafted highly, and especially when you start at camp as the 1A, 1B with Raheem Mostert, to have this like fall from grace in terms of not even being able to be active on game days, you know the kid's frustrated. So I don't know, man. It's just, you know, I sent out a tweet today just joking around, you know, like about, you know, the guy raising his hand in the meeting. What if we just played our first three draft
that
picks?
was a quality tweet. Like top 10, like 12 out of 10. Like such a cool. I saw when Niners Nation retweeted it.
Yep.
I was like, oh yeah, Jason. This is 100% Flames. It was so good.
The problem is that I'm on the East Coast and I'm stuck between, should I let this go at 10 while everybody's asleep at 7, or do I wait a little bit to let it go and let the West Coast see it? So essentially, basically, it's a guy, he raises his hand, and what he's saying is, why don't we just play our first 3-round picks? And everyone throws their book bags on him. A guy goes flying on him. It's really just funny, honestly. It's silly. If you guys get a chance, check it out. But yeah, I mean, I really don't know what's going on in terms of that. You know, I understand the draft is a crapshoot, but I think it is kind of damning that right now Trey Sermon can't see the field, especially in my eyes. He didn't, he didn't look so bad, especially, in the Green Bay game. It took him a little while to get going. He looked fine against Seattle, and that's it, you know. And I just don't know, man. I don't know what's going on there. It's weird. It really is. I really have no rhyme or reason as to what it is. The only thing that maybe I can hang my hat on is that Possibly they're redshirted because they're going to unleash all this when Trey Banks and him are there, next year. But that's hard to swallow because first, second, third round picks are expected to be contributors immediately.
Yeah, and right now the fifth round pick is contributing. Both fifth round picks are contributing. The sixth round pick is contributing. It's like flipped. It's the opposite. It's the opposite direction. So I think
Galaxy brain take, let the 49ers just start in the fifth round, just drafting. That's it. Like no more other picks in any other rounds. Just call the 49ers up and wake them up when it's the fifth round and say, all right, go for it.
well, the 49ers, I think, only have 33 players under contract right now for 2022. Take that second round pick, take that third round pick, get as many fifth rounds as you can, maybe 5 to 6, and just rebuild the roster through fifth round picks because it seemingly works at this point. But I think this is a good transition to kind of to put a bow on the episode. We're minute 30 in, so shout out to all you guys in the chat. The Sourdough Squad has been strong as always.
Smash that
Dropping
like button for the boy, man. Smash that like button. You guys don't understand how much that matters. I'm learning so much more about YouTube. When you hit that like button, it sends it to other people who are browsing YouTube and it gets more eyes on Brad's content. If you guys love what Brad does, please do that and hook him up, man. It would mean a lot because you know how much work he puts in.
my guy Jason, I love you so much, man. We're gonna end it on this one after cornerback because we're gonna kind of, we're in that transition point of do we start looking towards next year? Do we start looking towards developing players? Again, we've talked about, some of the rookies, and we just got done talking about first through third. After cornerback, though, what do we think the 49ers need to make a priority at this point? Whether I think we're safe to say this is a off-season question, but we'll end it on this. What are some of the priorities that the 49ers should be making as they move into the off-season and potentially building for 2020?
This is big brain right here. Draft a place kicker and sit him for a year so he can develop behind Robbie Gold. I'm just joking, guys. Okay, I'm just joking. No, no. Realistically, look, if you're gonna
49ers would mess around and do something like that. So don't put that evil on me, Ricky Bobby. I know you're joking, but
absolutely
the 49ers scare me at this point.
absolutely not. But look, it's gonna be because of the philosophy of this team. One way or another, what they are going to prioritize is going to be either defensive line or offensive line. And I think they should find themselves a very good center because Alex Mack is either going to be here for one more year or none at all after next year. And let's just call a spade a spade. We sang this defensive line's praises because of how deep they were and how well they were playing early on. That's not the case right now outside of like Bosa and Armstead, really. There's not really much coming from those other guys. So I think that we kind of missed the mark on that one. So I know that there's a joke going around, oh, I can't wait for them to draft a defensive lineman with their first pick. Don't be shocked. Don't be shocked, man,
You
at this
still
point.
need edge, man.
Yes,
Still need
exactly. Exactly. And I'm only saying that based on the way that they build their roster, which is something that they've talked about at length and they've shown you through the way that they drafted. Now, whether those guys have hit or not, hi Nick Bosa, sorry Solomon Thomas, who shout out to him is actually playing really well over there with the Raiders. But at this time, this defensive line that we thought was going to be deeper than 2019, which is probably foolish on our part when you're thinking about DeForest Buckner, or Eric Armstead, and Nick Bosa. It just hasn't lived up to the expectations. So you expect them to get back to that because of so much of what they want to do has to do with pass rush. And it's just not happening right now outside of Nick Bosa and Eric Armstead.
I agree. I think you're 100% spot on. Again, it's back to the drawing board with the defensive line. Again, we thought this was going to be the strongest group of the entire team heading into this offseason or heading into this year, and that wasn't the case. Of course, hugely hinged on D Ford or Samson Ebukam or Arden Key or just someone to be able to provide just as equally good as a pass rush presence that Nick Bosa was had, because we know those having two edges, they complement each other because you can only slide to one side. So if you slide to one side with that offensive line and you decide, okay, we're gonna stop D Ford today. Okay, well that means you're giving Nick Bosa one-on-one matchups, things like that. When you don't have that, it's really easy to send chips at Bosa. Again, that's what we spent like 2 or 3 weeks at the beginning of the year talking about, how wide receivers are depleting Nick Bosa because they're using chips and things like that. So that's part of it that gets taken away when you don't have equally good edge defenders. Um, we agree there was an opportunity for them to build through this year in the draft. Even again, Aziz Ojulari, shout out Jordan Elliott for putting me on. Um, but he
Aziz
would have
Hive.
Aziz Hive. He would have been phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal, and especially right now across from.
Well, here's
Uh,
my question. Here's my question. They love edge players, and they love edge players coming off injuries. This one really didn't make any sense. Like, I mean, that was really the knock on Aziz, right? Was just you
yeah,
didn't know how he was going to react off the injury, and look at him
yeah.
over there. The Giants fans are ecstatic right now.
Oh, he's speed and more speed, and that's exactly what we need across from Bosa. That's the recipe. That's why D Ford and Bosa were so dominant in 2019 is because that's what D Ford did. D Ford moves quarterback off the spot, and everyone else feasts. Whether it was DeForest Buckner, Eric Armstead, or Nick Bosa, that is what that is what D Ford did. He moved quarterbacks off their spot. He made them instantly uncomfortable, and it changed their progressions. It changed their timing, and it made the rest of the defense be able to be successful as a result. And so I agree. You're 100% right. They're back to the drawing board with the defensive line. Yet again, we don't have a first round pick, so we're not drafting no first rounders. Cap space is going to be a lot of juggling this offseason, so we can't look too far ahead. Maybe they address it in free agency. We're going to find out. We understand finding premier edge talent doesn't grow on trees. You don't typically find those in the fourth, fifth, sixth round. It's not, it happens. You look at Highsmith over there with Pittsburgh. He was a mid round pick. He's been phenomenal for them. So I agree. We'll end it on this one from Justin. Um, he says, I think Lance doesn't have confidence. Yeah, he's only played one game, but what happened to fake it till you make it? Jimmy has confidence and he hasn't made anything. So I think what he's alluding to is essentially why don't we get Trey Lance out there and start to again develop him further? That's at least what I'm taking away from it.
Yeah, and that's on the coaching staff because there's plenty of ways to develop the confidence. Get those layups going. And what I mean by layups, I'm not talking about throws down the field. I'm talking about those leaks that you have guys running wide open on the bottom that are the primary read. Like a basketball player who is struggling with his shot. If you make a layup or if you drop a free throw, all of a sudden you see the ball go through the hoop, you start to feel better. And the only way to build confidence, if he has lost it, if that's the case, based on what Mike Silver is saying, is to build the confidence through those ways, and the coaching staff is in charge of that 100%. And it's only going to happen with reps. It's the only way it's going to happen. It's not going to happen by holding a clipboard. It's just not.
Right. And I think that was part of the argument for the whole, I was definitely start Trey Lance week one because of the same points we've looked at with Justin Fields, hell, Mac Jones, any of the rookie quarterbacks. They all struggled. I mean, Zach Wilson struggled early. He got hurt, hasn't really been able to kind of come back and redeem himself yet. But for the most part, we know what entails starting a rookie. You kind of have to build that confidence in the fire. And unfortunately, we're probably going to have to wait some time before we truly see the Trey Lance. I mean, Kyle Field has alluded to it. It really does sound like there's no shot of seeing Trey Lance unless an injury occurs or the 49ers are mathematically eliminated from the playoffs and or Jimmy just completely deteriorates. So far, we've kind of scratched the surface on multiple levels, but we're not fully there yet. So until we get there, Trey Lance is probably going to be on the sideline. And does that build confidence? Who knows? I think both of us were on the side of get him going now, so the confidence could be built midway through the year and things of that nature. When it feels like it's kind of gone the opposite direction up until this point. But
Yep.
there's nothing really you can do, right? They've made their bed and now they got to sleep in it.
That's it.
So we're gonna find out what happens. Obviously, coming up against the Rams on Monday Night Football, huge game. Again, you want to talk about narratives, you want to talk about social media unrest. If the 49ers do not play well against the Rams, it's not just going to be content creators like you and I talking about this. You talked about Colin Hurd right? Is that his name?
Colin Coward.
Colin Coward. There we go. What the hell was that? Had a little brain fart there. Sorry about that. But those are the kinds of guys that are going to be coming after Kyle Shanahan pretty soon. I mean, you already saw it on Sunday Night Football with some of the guys like on First Take and things like that. That is only going to get amplified even further. So the hope is that the 49ers come in and at least play their game. And if they lose playing their game, we can walk away being like, okay, maybe we can build off this, do something. But as long we can't see another performance back to back like the Cardinals, where there's just no juice, there's no energy. That like they were able to move the ball, they were able to do certain things, but again, we keep coming back to this vibe, this energy of the team. So hopefully that is in play. Before and when we get to your last parting thoughts here, Jason, make sure you follow this man. This man is one of the hardest working content creators in 49ers land. That's why I call him the mayor. He is the mayor. He brings us all together. The GOAT. Jason, where do they follow you? Please tell them.
Uh,
Because if you're
oh.
not following Jason and you ingest 49ers content, I don't know what you're doing, man.
No, stop it, Brad. I appreciate that. It means a lot coming from sourdough Sam reincarnate. But no, yeah, just on Twitter at Jason Aponte 2103. Today I just been sending out memes. So if you want to laugh here and there, in between some analysis, that's cool. But subscribe to the YouTube channel. That's where I'm at. It's going to be a constant flow every single day, the way that Brad kind of does it, different guests, different sort of topics, going into the week. So Sprint Right Option Podcast with the most underrated person on 49ers Twitter, Andrew Pasquini. We do that twice a week with the game review and the game preview as well, too, that you can find anywhere that you get your podcasts, or, you can watch on my YouTube channel as well, too. But I love doing this episode with you because I feel like I get a chance to kind of yell earlier in the week and then formulate my thoughts. And then you and I are able to have intelligent, coherent discussions while still keeping that same sort of passion. So I always love doing these things with you, Brad. And I'm so glad that we got this going every single week because it's awesome.
It's a lot of fun. And I got your YouTube right, correct?
Yeah, it's just Jason Aponte. Yeah, if you type in on YouTube Jason Aponte, the first one that'll pop up is Jason Aponte 49ers, and then boom, it'll take you right there.
And so we know the Sourdough Squad, one of the most loyal communities out here in the YouTube land. Make sure you hop over to Jason's page and become a part of his squad, because as you can see, we are a community no matter what. So at the end of the day, win, lose, or draw, we're here to either make each other feel better or just lift each other up while we're dealing with the downs of the team. It is what it is. Either way, we're gonna stick together. All love to the Sourdough Squad. Let's go get those subs in for Jason. That's the
Appreciate
boy.
you.
And he has tons of other great content creators, so make sure you get on top of that. Again, as always, shout out the Sourdough Squad. Shout out everyone who likes and subscribes. Again, Jason talked about it, but it helps build these channels immensely, so we do appreciate it. Until next Wednesday, Jason, we're not gonna have any expectation of a win. We're halfway. We're halfway. It is what it is at this year. It's house money if they win. So we'll see what happens.
And one more thing before I go too. Look, I understand everybody's frustrated, right? But here's another thing. If you really love football, then it's already week 10. There is only 8 more weeks of football. So one way or another, you have to try to enjoy this as best you can because it goes fast. I can't believe it. We're already in week 10. So, I mean, whatever happens going forward is whatever's happening. But you have to cherish this because all offseason, you're going to be saying, man, I can't wait for football to come back. Well, football's here, good or bad. So you have to kind of take it in that context as well.
I think that's a great point. I think that's absolutely a great point. We got to enjoy it while we can, and we're going to keep covering it the best we can. We'll be back next Wednesday, same time, 1:30 Pacific Standard Time, and we'll be back to break it all down. Shout out everyone as always. You guys have a blessed day, and we are out. Peace.